Hi, my name is Russell Shalev. I hold a bachelor's degree in political science and law and a master's degree in Middle Eastern studies. My paper was published as part of a project from the Institute of Zionist Strategies to publish outstanding student papers. My paper deals with the status of Jewish-owned properties in Judea and Samaria after the Jordanian conquest in 1948. These properties have a unique status in that Jordan seized these properties from their original Jewish owners, and after Israel conquered, liberated the territory in 1967, Israel continued to treat these properties as Jordanian state property. The Israeli Supreme Court dealt with the status of these properties in the Valero case, in which it ruled that the Jordanian seizure cut off the ties between the original owners and these properties, and therefore the State of Israel was under no obligation to return these properties. In this paper, I argue that not only does Israel have the ability, but has the obligation to return these properties to their original owners. In international law, there's a rule that says that unjust acts cannot create rights. Jordan invaded the newly created State of Israel in 1948, in contradiction to international law. Therefore, Jordan was not a lawful occupying power. It did not have the right to seize these properties. Jordan cannot be allowed to benefit from the results of its illegal actions. There's another principle that says that states that violate international law are required to compensate states that they damage. The principal example of compensation for aggressive action is the Treaty of Versailles after the First World War. But even more recently, Iraq was required to compensate Kuwait for the damages caused by its invasion in the 90s. Israel was the victim of Jordanian aggression in 1948 and 1967. While Israel doesn't have the ability to demand full compensation from Jordan, it can return these properties, which it considers to be Jordanian property, to their original owners as a step towards full compensation. After we've established that these properties must be returned to the Jewish owners, this raises the parallel question of property left behind by Arab refugees after the 1948 war. I argue that a similar treatment of both of these properties would erase the distinction between victim and aggressor. The issue of Arab property is infinitely more complicated. The relevant Jewish property is several hundred buildings, about 40 square kilometers, whereas Arab property is that which belonged to hundreds of thousands of refugees. The return of Arab property is tied to the law of return, a position that is rejected by the entire Israeli public from left to right. The law of return would allow the entry into Israel of several million Palestinian refugees and their descendants, something that would completely destroy the Jewish character of the state. The return of several hundred Jewish properties would not cause any mass disturbances in Judea and Samaria, especially given the fact that several 100,000 Jews already live in this area. In conclusion, the State of Israel has a unique obligation towards its citizens, that which it does not have towards refugees in enemy countries. Just as the State of Israel sees itself responsible for the return of seized Jewish properties in Europe and in Arab countries, so too is responsible towards seized Jewish properties in Judea and Samaria. And finally, the return of such property would be a Zionist act of the highest accord, in keeping with V'shavu banim ligvulam.